Mr. Mabongtan, said that you guys has earlier and he raised some questions about your housing policies in the manifesto. He raised 3 points. Firstly, he said that the WP is creating deliberate policies to crash the housing market. He said that your policies, in particular the one on selling new HDB flats at a lower price, would devalue assets as well to distort the market. The second point is he says the WP has not yet actually explained how you will pay for lower flat prices. How you actually achieve that. And also he says that the WP is perhaps coming up with all these housing proposals because it thinks that it will not be voted in anyway, so they look attractive on paper. They look attractive on paper, but then they're just short-term policies that have little to do with real world accountability. Could you respond to that, please?
So I think I'll give a brief response, and if there's a need to, we can elaborate further tomorrow if there are further questions. Okay, I'm just hearing the first time from you now what he said this morning because we have not had a chance to read that. But anyway, what you mentioned, the first point was that he says it's a deliberate attempt on our part to crush the market. I don't think we would ever have such a proposal to do that. And, in the past days, we've already explained that our proposal is confined to the pricing of new flats, which in the total scheme of the number of flats being transacted is rather limited number. It has also got various eligibility criteria and restrictions. For example, only certain groups of citizens are entitled to buy new flats from the HDB in the first place. Secondly, there's a minimum holding period where they have to hold onto the flats. And I think the market also for people buying resale actually targets a much wider group of people. So there will always be still a large group of people who will still go for resale because they're not eligible for the new flats directly from HDB. So in our assessment, the proposal to price new flats based on median income will have minimal impact on the resale market based on our estimates. So we have already answered this question earlier, but I'm just repeating what we have said. Okay, the second thing is that you said he mentioned something about we have not discussed how we are going to pay for these flats. But it has been answered in Parliament many times that actually the so-called subsidy for the new flats is actually a market subsidy. So sometimes I wonder when the PAP leaders talk about where the money is coming from. I mean, if we're talking about market subsidy, is it a real subsidy in that sense? There's still some lack of transparency about the costs of building the flats. So that data needs to be made transparent. In order for us to have a proper debate about this point. And last of all. You said that he mentioned that we are coming up with a proposal because we do not think we'll be government and therefore we don't have to implement it. My response to that is that we decided to go into this issue because of real ground concerns of parents about their children in the future, whether their children will be able to afford public housing. And I mean, if we go back to the government's main role as a provider of public housing, HDB, affordability should be the main thing that they're concerned about. I mean, let's go back to the fundamentals, I mean, I don't think HDB is created there, to let people have, in that sense, an asset of high value. I mean, its first aim should be to provide housing which is affordable. So if that is your main aim, you still have to come back to incomes and to see whether people are able to afford the flats and how long it will take for people to pay for those flats. So I think we're trying to bring the discussion back to fundamentals again.
Today, Vice Chairman Radizan, he made a point about the fact that opposition candidates don't have enough time, or people don't have enough time to get to know them. Are you all worried that this might become a popularity contest instead of a political contest because we only know you for, say, a few weeks as opposed to members of the PAP?
I think the context of his statement was in the field of boundary redrawing. So he was saying that if the PMO decides to release the boundaries very close to the G to give new areas to people to contest, this was always going to be a challenge, in that sense, for us to get to know the ground better in the new areas. I think that was what he meant. I'm not sure what you mean by popularity contest.
I mean, if people who don't know, the new candidates that you're fielding, they actually only have this certain amount of time to actually get to know them. And in terms of voting, I mean, we want to feel invested in the people that we're voting for. So, I'm just wondering, is you feel that it might actually end up being like, because I feel that this guy can do a better job, then I'll, instead of actually talking about the policies and whatever is in the manifesto.
I mean, okay, within the constraints that we have, i.e. elections being conducted by the PMO, we try our best to expose our potential candidates to the ground as long as possible. I mean, we welcome, in fact, people to join us, way ahead of GE so that, at least there'll be a period of time for us to work, and then, we can also, get to know the residents in the intended areas or more or less targeted areas that we intend to contest. But in the end, the question of boundary redrawing still comes back, you see. I mean, you can give us a whole new area, 1 month before the GE, then, we will obviously have some constraints there, you see. So, within what we can do, we will try to expose our potential candidates as early as possible and, through the media as well when we can. But then, boundary redrawing is always, you just have to look at the recent round of boundary redrawing, So, I don't think I need to say more than that.
Following up with that is that perhaps the local issues will not that we have heard the party talking about national issues, but not so much about local issues. So if the candidates are not really seen in those places as yet by the residents, then would there be a concern that perhaps in terms of the local issues, maybe the ground is not so well or so strong?
As I mentioned, from whatever ground outreach that we can do, we will have some sense of the local issues. But in the end, when we campaign as a party, we would still look at the national platform. I think it is right for voters, and they have used the elections as a barometer of their happiness or unhappiness with the ruling party over policies as a whole. And to be frank, apart from the GE, when else do the voters get a chance to give the government a report card also, on their performance? So I think voters are right to expect parties to campaign on national issues. In one sense, they are more important and have an overarching effect. So, as far as local issues are concerned, I think if we are fortunate enough to have a breakthrough in the election and we become elected in certain constituencies, then we will certainly look very seriously at local manifestos for our residents at that point in time. But I think for now, it's a bit premature for us to do that.